Welcome back to another episode of Wheel to Wheel. It is finally the conclusion of race one. And me personally, I'm elated to pull a vocab
Oh,
word out of the
I wonder why.
but I wonder how Case is feeling. And there's not really much of a guess. I know exactly how he's feeling, but I'll let him tell you for himself.
Uh, Hopes are not high. If I was Lewis Hamilton and brother was in my ear every other turn repeating the same thing over and over again, I would be just as mad as he is, if not more mad. I may have had a crash out in the middle of the race.
I
Uh,
think I think he was fighting a crash out the entire race.
yeah.
It was ugly, ugly, ugly. And I'm paying a little bit more attention to Ferrari just because of you. Of course, my main focus was Albon, but all right. Before we get too much into it, let's just jump into a few quick areas just to easily encapsulate what we thought. First off, this is a little cornbally, but we have to do it. Case, what was your favorite wheel to wheel moment in the entire race?
Um, Geez, man. There was honestly a lot of good racing. Um,
Surprisingly, based on the weather,
Kimmy Kimmy full sent it through that chicane on the back, the high speeder, like right around somebody.
it was on
Um,
Albon.
right. I mean, not to glaze Kimmy more than I probably will this whole episode, but that'd probably be my best wheel to wheel moment.
I was gonna say the exact same pass. Kimmy passing Alex, even though it hurt me for him to pass P5 to P4 and getting fourth place. That was the most impressive. I would say secondly would be Oscar on Lewis. Sorry, we
Yeah.
both have to be on the receiving end of the best overtakes, but those
Yeah.
were Oscar's just I will glaze Oscar's racecraft every single podcast episode. So, I mean, it was unbelievable. I thought those were probably the two best overtakes.
Yeah. I mean, it took stones on both of those overtakes. Just, it's like the old clip of Fernando Alonso passing Schumacher. I think it's at, oh gosh, where is it? Uh, doesn't matter. You'd know the clip that I'm talking about because Fernando comes out and he's like, I know he'd hit the brakes. He's got a wife and two kids at home.
I know, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
That's tough.
Yeah, I mean, none of them were like I feel like that balls. I don't know. The Kimmy one was super. Kid had some heavies hanging between his legs on that pass. He absolutely put
Cojones.
pedal to the metal and just sent it in the not dry line just to go around him. So I thought that was insane. But driver of the day for me had to have been Kimi Antonelli.
Yeah.
He qualified what E16, so he was in 16, and it was kind of one of those things where you're like, rookie struggles. Here we go again. Race conditions also took out what, like five out of the six rookies?
Yeah.
Well, actually, five out of the seven, including Fernando. And and then from there, basically, I kind of just thought Kimmy was going to suffer the same exact thing, but he went from 16th to fourth, and it was insane.
It was
He just,
awesome.
as we just said, like he didn't seem uncomfortable, and he did really well in the wet in F2. So it was kind of like his element, but to transfer in F1 was really impressive on your first race. And I guess that's first qualifying besides like in practice with the car. That's his like first time really pushing it. So that was pretty cool to see.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, he balled, man. That's your top performer of the race, in my opinion.
Only other person, I mean, I think there was a bunch of people that drove that race really well. I think Lando drove it really well. I do think Lando and Oscar both made the same mistake when they slid off track. And I think that obviously just showed that it was due to the tire change that they had made and that the area was getting rainfall now.
Yeah.
And then Oscar just got the butt end of it by beaching on the grass, which sucked. But like, I mean, dude, I couldn't give driver of the day to Lando because at the end of the day, until that happened, Oscar was faster.
Yeah. He was. And I mean, more props to Oscar. Dude is driving through rain on hard compound tires. If you're not fully familiar with tire compounds and how they react, hard compound tires take a hell of a long time to warm up. So he's sliding around, whatever, goes in the grass, somehow finds reverse and gets out
That
with
was crazy.
zero heat and tires on wet grass. That is unheard of. He didn't let it ruin his home race, and like props to him, man. He sold. It was fun to watch.
And the crowd was going crazy when he was doing that. And as
Oh
soon as he
yeah,
found tarmac, they blew up. It was
they went
awesome.
nuts.
Yeah, so that was super super cool. And then he freaking raced all the way back to get points,
Yep.
which was sick. And like, who's to say? I was thinking like, what did he get? He got ninth, so he got
Yeah.
like 2 points. So I was thinking like, who's to say that those 2 points don't play a big factor in like the later race for the constructors between what I believe will be the 2 McLarens for the drivers' championship. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was pretty cool. Also, honorable mention I think has to be Alex Albon. He drove a really really good race in a car where I think in the dry we actually will be in an advantage to a lot of the midfield. So I was just impressed with his drive just in general. He's usually really good in the wet, so that was cool. And it was also, even though Carlos spun out, I was just thinking the whole time of like, if we can scrap together a P5 in like a wet track, which will happen again in the future.
Mhm.
Heck, dude, what happens if we get 2 guys getting up there in the top? Like I think we're gonna be getting the little bit of some tight cheeks on the topper up teams this year with
Oh
some
yeah.
W's passing 4th, 5th, and causing some issues. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm super optimistic about it. All right, from that point, we've kind of already touched on this. This kid's literally been brought up now 2 times out of the 3, but the best and worst rookie performances. I mean, Kimmy's the best.
Kimmy's the best. Can't really argue. And honestly, hard to say who's the worst because they all found a wall. I'd say the most embarrassing, probably Hajar. I mean, doing at least got to race a little bit.
Hajar's was sad, man. It made me. I was just bummed.
Yeah.
We were up late watching, me and you,
Oh
because we were
yeah.
together this weekend, and we were sitting there. And when he slid into the wall, it was like, "Are you serious?"
Yeah. It's like, oh, that couldn't have gone any worse for him.
Yeah,
You feel for the kid. Obviously, Lewis's dad was there for him, which I thought was a cool gesture.
super cool.
But yeah, I mean, it it sucks for guys on their first time out. It's something to get used to. I mean, it sounded like Hajar was mid turn on the formation lap in the wet and put his foot to the floor. So
I think he said it was a gear shift. I think he shifted up and it torqued out and accelerated.
yeah, I mean,
Same thing happened to Signs, apparently. Same issue. I think Signs was more car related. I think Hajar's was miss input on his part.
yeah. But regardless, yeah, your best, Kimmy. Your worst, probably. Yeah, I mean, you
I
gotta
don't.
say Hajar.
I have a different worst. I'm not going to pile on this guy, but this is, I think a lot of people are right now. He's not necessarily a rookie, but it's his first time starting a season. I think Liam Lawson was the worst rookie. He crashed and admittedly said he was no longer pushing and then crashed into the wall. So, and then also just to see, and it's like the great, what is it? The great equalizers, the rain. So that's what they all call it. And like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, dude, Max was freaking unbelievable. Just watching how fast he is and him like dragging that Red Bull to like Lando's ass at the end of the race to make it like less than a second gap was incredible. But then meanwhile, like Liam's in the back of the pack like the entire race and then crashes out when he's not even pushing. It was just like, I mean, Zach Brown roasted Red Bull earlier and was like, hey, they put the wrong guy in the car. Yuki should be in the car. So I don't know. He kind of got it piled onto him. I thought it was a not a great performance, especially it's not his hometown race. He's from New Zealand, but pretty close to home. So
Yeah, it sucks for him. Yeah, I mean, the thing about the Red Bull is, I think we proved this weekend that it's definitely not as strong as it has been. Towards the end of that race, it seemed like Max was squirrely on every exit, at every turn. It couldn't put the power down. Obviously, it's wet. I understand, but in recent years, that car has dominated. Wet, dry, hot, cold, you name it. It puts the heat where it needs to go and can go. And yeah, I mean, it looks a little too twitchy, like Albon's interview in that podcast when he says that it's like turning the sensitivity all the way up in Call of Duty when you're used to playing in the middle. It looked like that for the first time ever, and it like looked like it caught Max by surprise a couple times, and that's not good.
what it made me really curious about is on a dry course or dry track, is the V carb or the Red Bull going to be faster?
I mean,
Because I don't
freaking
know. I truthfully don't know. because Yuki was,
Marco comes out and says that Max could be in the V car by the end of the year.
yeah, that's concerning.
Crazy take.
So, I mean, Yuki qualified P5.
Yeah.
So, I mean, dude, first off, shout out Yuki. I think he had a
Yeah, he's a dog.
so I mean, he also had a great race. Sadly, he was on the butt end of a strategy per usual. I think it's V Carbon, the team that I'll let Grant get into in a
The
little bit.
boys in red.
The boys in red that tend to be the ones that make the questionable decision. First off, it would have been a hero decision if it worked out, but it didn't to stay on the slicks. And Yuki was a part of that. He was like P4, so he was up there, and then they didn't pit in time, and everybody else passed. But he was driving a hell of a race, and I think he's going to be an absolute menace in that car, doing
Mhm.
similarly what I think the Williams will do. And we haven't seen Isaac. Isaac will get out there, and I'll just be curious to see if he can bring it to some of the upper echelon teams. I just think. I mean, could you imagine if the Red Bull was that much worse than the V car? That'd be hilarious. I
Oh
would be
my
dying.
gosh, dude.
Horner's ego would get crushed, and I'm just here for it. I'm here for it if it.
They would literally do a full team flip.
You
Horner
think
would
so?
go, yeah, Horner would go manage Max.
Ugh, insane. Okay, and then we'll get to this one's kind of just got put on a tee for you, but worst strategy.
Yeah, you can't argue. Ferrari made some mistakes. You're chirping in Lewis's ear the whole race. He's saying, "Leave me to it. Leave me to it." You know, you're close enough. Use whatever K1 or whatever it was. He's like, "Man, I'm not close enough. Like, shut up and let me drive." Then you got Leclerc sitting in a pool the whole race, and his engineer says, "It must be the water."
Well,
What?
do you not think Leclerc just had a moment where he was like, "There's water everywhere," and they're like, "Yeah, no doubt it's raining," or do you think something was actually up?
The seat shouldn't hold water like that, even if it is raining.
Gotcha.
So if it's his drink tube and something busted somewhere in his suit, yeah, he's gonna get flooded. But I mean, yeah, you're gonna be wet, but
Not
I
sitting
think
in it.
I think you know the excessive amount, and I think he was there. Driving uncomfortable is not fun. You drive 30 minutes and your ass is wet the whole time. You're not going to want to drive either.
Sounds like me.
Yeah, facts.
Dude, yeah. It was brutal to watch. Also, the fact that Lewis got chirped at for like the fifth time in a row, and
Hmm.
then didn't mute his his radio, and then just like went on a cussing spree was not a good look at all. And
Kind of
it
hilarious.
just felt so weird. It's like you're not managing a rookie driver. You're
No.
managing 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton, and let the guy do his freaking thing. It was so embarrassing. But then there was a moment when they were 1-2. Was there a moment where you're like, this could happen, or did you kind of already know that it wasn't going to work out?
Um, I mean, I was optimistic, but cautiously optimistic. I can never get too high. I mean, the highs are high and the lows are low, and they were going to need tires eventually. I knew that wasn't going to last forever. I mean, yeah, safety car, anything could happen. Like a VSC, they would have been okay. Um, but yeah, of course I was happy. It's never a sad thing to see your cars 1-2, but in the back of my head, I had to know
Something's got
something
to
was going
happen.
to crumble. And honestly, I thought it would have been Leclerc more than it would have been Lewis, but the fact that it was both sucks.
And now you're behind Kick and the instructors. Also, dude, we forgot to shout out somebody. This isn't strategy, but Lance Stroll finished sixth. And
I was going to say that
I was
early.
shitting on Lance Stroll all the predictions. So I think this is where we roll into this. Worst takes that have now occurred due to the race result. First and foremost,
There's one that stands out above them all. We were both hyping them up. Haas. What
Haas.
in the world was
Dude,
that?
it's a gallon of skim milk in the sun, dude. It's disgusting now. Like their
Yeah,
car's horrible. They're not pushing at all. I am happy Ollie didn't crash. I think if he crashed in
same.
the race, he was gonna go off the rails and lose all of his confidence. So I think that's good, but I don't know what the heck is going on.
He
Like
had
I
a
have
good
no
take at the
idea.
end of the race, though. He was like, honestly, the goal was to get the car out there, drive laps, and collect data.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's like, all right.
I mean, I guess if they know, but still, it's just like, what is going on? Do you have no? Yeah, I guess you're right. I mean, but it's like the field was slimmed down so much. Like
Oh, I know. They
you
could have
could have scored
capitalized.
points.
They could
I
have
don't
done
know.
really well. I mean, shout out Lance Stroll though. Good drive, keep the car
Kept
on
it
the
on the track,
track,
man.
and get rewarded with points. It's off to a good start for him.
Maybe all that drifting in the rally car in the offseason really helped him when he was getting that fishtail out a little. I mean, heck,
Heck yeah.
Fernando Alonso crashed and Lance kept it on the track and finished sixth.
Yeah.
I think.
Fernando, did you see all the stuff about Fernando in the media? Saying they interview him and he's like, yeah, I mean, the car could be good and I still won't tell you. He's like, I'm not going to talk to media this whole year.
Really? Do
Yeah.
you think he's protesting FIA, dude?
Don't know. It could be that, or it could be that he's so disappointed with where that car is at that any questions he gets, he's just going to give them the same answer. Like they asked him, like, did you get good data on the car? They asked him something along those lines. And he's like, yeah, we could have good data.
Is Bill Belichicking them?
Yeah. I mean, he's not full Marshawn Lynch. I'm just here so I don't get fined. But
that's Max, yeah.
Yeah. But he had a rep earlier in his career of being not so friendly to media, reporters, people interviewing him. And then it faded and he was great. And then now it's taking that other turn. It's easier to be friendly to the media and friendly in general and positive outlook when the car is good. And maybe when you thought you had something and it's, pile of crap in a bag, it's not so easy to be nice.
Yeah. And I'm just like curious on how much they're really going to try this year, just because they got Newey sitting in their back pocket working on the car for next year. So
the thing I don't understand on that point is if the car is that bad, there's probably a couple glaring problems that Newey could look at in 2 weeks and say, all right, look, we got to develop this part, and that'll offset this. That'll offset a problem that they both have, but they aren't giving him the look.
they're not doing it. He's not doing anything with this year's car, apparently.
I know.
Nothing.
And I understand. They're probably going to be really good next year, too. You have one of the best small car drivers of all time.
Yeah, but that means Honda has to develop a good power unit. And Honda's already openly been saying they're struggling with the balance between the engine and the battery. And so my biggest thing is next year, I think, look, a lot of engine manufacturers and power unit manufacturers or whatever teams are rolling with, I think are going to surprise me. But it's just all the talks seems to be Mercedes is the best by miles and miles.
Yeah.
So if you're not rocking with Mercedes, you're most likely going to be one way or the other struggling or somehow whipping something up and just surprising the whole field.
Yeah.
So I think that's what's going to be interesting about next year, because the teams that are using Mercedes are McLaren, Mercedes, Williams, Alpine.
Who does Kick have in? Are they Ferrari still?
I don't know.
I think they're still Sauber.
But then they're going to be Audi, and Audi's developing that in house.
Yeah.
So next year they're going to be Audi. So it should be interesting. And then Cadillac's doing their own too. And then Ford's doing Red Bulls. Honda's doing Aston Martins. Oz is Ferrari. So I don't know. I think the field's going to switch next year. But another take that I think, actually, this is a take that will stand, I think, was that George Russell is going to have a good year. I think George Russell is going to do what George Russell does, which is constantly hang in there and swoop in when there's an opportunity to get hella big points.
That dude
was just hanging out.
Points.
He stayed safe, and then when he needed to strike, he struck, and he got third. So he
it's
just
the quietest P3 I've ever seen.
Yeah,
they didn't show his car once on the feed. I was
literally just about to say they showed Kimi. I didn't even see George once the entire time.
I saw him pulling down the pit lane at the end of the race, and that was the first time I saw him. I was like, that dude just got P3, and they didn't even give him the light of day. I mean, was he that far behind Max, Oscar, and Lando? Maybe. Was he driving a race by himself? I would have to rewatch. I don't know.
Because they literally, I agree. I don't know what he was doing because they didn't freaking show any coverage. And there was a lot of complaints about how the coverage was on, Hamilton when it probably shouldn't have been. When he's just getting not out defended, but just getting defended by Albon. There wasn't really anywhere to go. Albon's behind Yuki, and then Lewis was behind Albon. But it was why are we just hanging on to this?
Yeah,
It's let's pop around. Let's see the races that are happening. But Dude, talk about an exciting first race. It got me
Seriously.
fired up, but also we really didn't learn much because it was wet. So it's
Right.
like, who's to know? Like on dry Ferrari might be really good, or
Sure.
it still could be a huge question mark on their car, which is
I
kind of
mean,
what
they opted for
a
a
wet.
higher ride height and blah blah. Yeah, yeah, I get it. But how much of that is just saying like, "Mm, maybe this track isn't. I mean, the Ferrari won there last year. Didn't Signs win that race?
Yeah, Sainz won it after his appendix surgery.
Exactly.
So that's why I was really bummed Sainz didn't even get the freaking race. That was crazy. I can't believe he went into the wall. But
Yeah.
shout out Sainz for making the call to switch to Inters and getting us
Heck yeah.
P5.
He was an engineer in that race, basically.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. It should be interesting. I mean, Lewis is really good on China, so that's a comfortable track for him. See if he can get the car to work well with him and get the engineer to shut the hell up and
Yeah,
let
really.
him race, dude. It
Shut
was
up and let him
insane.
drive.
So yeah, I don't know, man. It should be interesting, but I'm feeling extremely hopeful as a Williams fan. I
Yeah.
mean, dude, if because my biggest thing is there's so many young drivers. So for constructors purposes, like even if Max is getting P2s and P3s, if we're getting 4.5s, 5.6 consistently with two drivers, like we have a chance to beat Red Bull.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's going to be cool stuff like that just to see how things really pan out. Kimi doesn't seem like he's going to be a rookie that can be taken advantage of. He seems like he's going to be a freak. This is obviously off of one race, but the conditions being so bad, it gives me more confidence that he'll be great in the dry.
Oh
But
yeah.
once again, who's to say? Because that just could mean that other racers aren't as good in the wet. So Kimi just was like a level above them, even as a
Mhm.
rookie in the first race in the wet. And then when it gets to dry, he could be about level with those guys and they could easily defend him or get around him. But
Sure.
who's to say?
He drives hard, man. Can't say he doesn't.
Yeah, it was sick. Any other big takeaways you had?
I don't think so. I mean, the obvious is the McLaren looks as strong as
It
ever.
looks so fast.
Um, yeah, I mean, it looks like it's on autopilot. It's just smooth. I think I said to somebody like that car just looks fun to drive. Um, yeah, that's kind of it. I'm disappointed with some of the teams that I thought were going to be good. Haas specifically.
Yeah,
Um,
horrible take.
feel bad for Bortoletto too. I like him,
And that
but
wasn't his fault, really. Something happened with the car, like the suspension dropped out or something weird.
yeah, it looked like his wheel broke, but like something snapped, and then he flipped backwards, and then it snapped off. So hard to say. I didn't look into that too deep. He kept it on the track for the most part, and when he didn't, it didn't seem to be all his fault.
And it just seems like Hulkenberg can't not get P7.
Yeah, I mean,
Like literally.
he's an anomaly in the sport.
It was
Like,
wet though. I think even he even talked. He was like, "This was not at all what we had expected." By the way, he's like, "We were expecting to be way back there, just chilling with everybody else." So
yeah,
he's a great driver. And then I mean, he is like an absolute. I heard this from somebody who was reporting on it, but like he's a quality merchant. Like he's a one lap merchant. Like we all know Hulk's great in one lap time. So seeing him to
yeah,
race it out for P7 is pretty cool.
yeah, for sure.
Dude, constructors right now looks crazy.
Yeah, it's a weird look. I'm so curious to see how that'll settle over however many races, but we're off to a great start. Like we've said all along, we're in for a great year, and there's going to be drivers and teams that are going to be up there that maybe we didn't think, and hopefully it's consistent. What I don't want to see is like the Williams be up there for this race and then have a 10 race skid of nothing.
Yeah.
Like, dude, that was just false hope.
Yeah, that would
Like,
suck. But that's kind of what Albon said. He was like, "Oh, I'm super excited." This was before that Kimmy's penalty got revoked, but he was like, "P4 is insane." Like he's like, "This is awesome. I'm excited." But I wish it wasn't the first race.
yeah,
Because it's the first race and you go, "Oh, P4, that's great." He goes, "But if it's like halfway in the season or almost towards the end of the season, you're like, oh, all that hard work finally paid off and we got a P4."
yep,
He's like, "No, we just showed up and got a P4," which is like super unprecedented for Williams, obviously, but like, what in the world? He's like, "This is crazy." So I don't know. I'm with you. I don't know what's gonna happen. I mean, Kick's definitely not staying in front of Ferrari, the
no,
constructors, and like, there's a bunch of stuff like that. So I mean, I'll be curious to see what like the midfield battle really is. a lot of people still have Williams at the top of the midfield battle just based on testing and stuff. But
Mhm.
I don't know. Like, who's to say that Aston Martin doesn't come out and be vicious as well as V carb? And I do think I think the Mercedes looks faster than the Ferrari
Yeah.
right now, but the Ferrari had a late start last year as well, and they caught up pretty quick. So I'm
Uh-huh.
just kind of excited to see some midfield battles with potentially like Mercedes and Ferrari and Red Bull in the mix, and just like really pushing that pile together. I mean, because the what is it? The gap between times is like incredibly small right now.
Yeah. I think another take I've got, don't be surprised if Mercedes is duking it out for constructors championship. They're going to be up there.
Really? Okay.
If they get that consistency out of George and get Kimmy to drive and qualify, those two cars at the front of a grid are closer up, and if they are close together, they're going to do something special.
Yeah, and I still do think that will be prone to make a mistake when he's leading a race.
For sure.
I do think he will slip up. And that's where it'll be curious to see if Oscar comes in. Like, because now it kind of sucks because, I mean, what is it, 25 points
Yep.
is what Lando's rocking with, and Oscar's rocking with 2. So
Mhm.
it's like the favoritism could already start now. Also, the fact that they weren't letting them race off rip was ridiculous when they're now equally paid racers for McLaren. So I don't know. We'll see. But I think it'll be curious to see if there's that favoritism. But if, like, say Norris makes a mistake and then Oscar gets a win and Norris gets a DNF or something crazy happens, like,
Yep. You're right back at the 50.
right back at the scratch. So it's like it's
Yep.
going to be really interesting. Even if it's a blowout year with McLaren, I think it's different from Max's reign, where like clearly there was a driver 2. There is no driver 1 and driver 2. I don't think at McLaren. While Zach Brown definitely has it as Norris, I think for a lot of other people on the team, they have Oscar there, and I personally think Oscar's a better. I don't know. He just feels more like a championship driver to me,
Yeah.
just based on like how I don't know how to describe it before, just like classic. Like he's just a classic racing style that's clean,
Yeah.
smooth, and looks comfortable. Whereas Norris definitely seems a little bit more impulsive, but I think he's working on that. He seems a lot calmer. Like this whole week, he seemed like really even keel. That could have just been confidence that they know that car is a freaking bullet down the
Rocket
track.
ship. Yeah. I
it's
mean,
insane.
you've got Norris can get mouthy. We've like yet to see Oscar get mouthy. So I think it's
He's
another
the
thing you can
he's
weigh in
the
there.
reincarnation of Kimmy,
Yeah.
whatever he
Exactly.
always says.
It's
So,
awesome.
he's so funny, dude. I love him. So I'm so excited though. I'm so pumped. I will say, it put a lot of false hope in me that there could be a cheeky podium for Williams. If
Yeah.
I see Albon on that podium, dude, I'm gonna freak out.
Oh yeah, you're gonna cry for sure.
I don't think I'll cry. I don't cry very easily, but I'll get super pumped up. I was screaming in my car when he was in P4, so
Heck yeah.
yeah, I was freaking out. But yeah, dude, let's go.
Yeah.
More races to come. Excited stuff.
More
You're definitely staying up
breakdowns.
for the China one, right?
Whew.
Was it 3:30 our time? Or 3
Yeah,
o'clock?
something like that.
Yeah, I'll be waking up bright and early Sunday and watching that, but
Same.
I'm not I'm not staying up for that thing.
Heck yeah.
All right, y'all. Well, this will be a common occurrence. Every race weekend we'll be doing these, so stay tuned if you like the content, and if you don't, there's other options for you. Sorry, we don't have a cool accent. This is what we're rocking with. See you guys.